Assessment Open House. My name is Rebecca McAlpine, Director of Engagement, and I'm super excited to be your host throughout many of these open houses that we have here during our weeks of welcome sessions. Today, we are so excited to have Beth Sneed with us, our Assessment and Data Coordinator. She's going to share a whole bunch of really helpful information with you today about all things assessment to get you all and your scholars set up for a successful school year, knowing exactly what to expect. So with that, I have the privilege to hand the mic off. Oh, sorry, one quick reminder before I do that. During the session today, Zoom privileges will be limited, but not to fret. At the end of today's session, we will have a Q&A session for those who are here live. If you're watching the recording, thank you for doing that. We're so glad you're watching the recording right now. And we'll also have contact information shared at the end of today's session if you have questions while watching the recording too. And now I have the distinct privilege of handing the microphone off to Beth for her to help us learn all about all things assessment. Thanks so much, Beth. Take it away.
Thanks, Rebecca, for that great introduction, and welcome to our Assessment Open House. So we'll go through our agenda today. We'll be discussing the various assessments at Compass and their importance for our school and our scholars. We'll begin with our mission and vision and our Compass values, and then move to the many acronyms related to various assessments. I'll explain why assessments are important and how we do and don't use the assessment results. I'll show you who takes each assessment and go over specifics, including estimated assessment times. And we'll wrap up by sharing where you can find practice and training tests. And I can answer your questions at the end of our presentation. So our mission is to inspire and develop innovative, creative, self-directed learners one scholar at a time. And our vision at Compass is to create an innovative, collaborative learning environment that supports the diverse needs and goals of each scholar, nurtures the love of learning, and prepares them for future success. Our RTEC values of achievement, respect, teamwork, integrity, and communication ground us and keep us focused on our scholars. And I'll do a brief introductions for my assessment team. We work within the larger staff support department. I'm Beth Sneed, and I've been the assessment and data coordinator for 10 years and with Compass for nearly 11. My team, consisting of Carrie Badescu and Luis Navarrete, work to plan and manage assessments and the data from those assessments to help teachers and scholars set their goals and ensure support is provided when needed. So let's begin with our acronyms. SBAC is the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium. California belongs to this consortium along with 11 other states, the District of Columbia, and 1 territory. The Smarter Balanced Assessment System includes a comprehensive suite of standards-aligned tools and resources. CASP is the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress. The CASP measures knowledge and skills in English Language Arts, ELA, mathematics, and science, as well as progress towards college and career readiness. Oh, just lost my place. Hold on just a second, sorry. And scholars with the most significant cognitive disabilities may be assessed using the California Alternate Assessments, called the CAW, if it has been specified in their IEP plan. The format of the ELA and math assessments are in 2 parts, the CAT, the Computer Adaptive Test, and the PT, the Performance Task. The California Science Test is known as the CAST. PFT is the acronym for the Physical Fitness Test for California. LPAC is the English Language Proficiency Assessments for California, and there are 2 assessments under LPAC, Initial and Summative. I will also be mentioning STs and LCs during this presentation. Your scholar's ST or supervising teacher is their homeroom teacher, and the learning coach or LC is usually you, the parent, but it can be a designated adult who facilitates learning for your scholar. Okay, so before we get into specifics, let's discuss why assessments are important. Assessments have many uses, and each score adds to the picture we're creating of each of our scholars. California's academic standards are designed so scholars graduate ready for college and career. Assessment data can reveal if we are meeting that goal, both after graduation and well before graduation, allowing us to make corrections to our processes to better support teaching and learning. 200 plus colleges across the country use Smarter Balanced test scores to determine college course placement. Public charter schools, like all California public schools, are federally mandated to assess 95% of their scholars using the CASP and assess 100% of English learning scholars using the LPAC assessments each spring. The state of California expects 100% participation for both of these assessments. This percentage of participation is important to our ongoing charter authorizations, as well as state and federal reporting. Assessment data, both participation and performance, is important in our charter renewals. We need to provide a complete data to our authorizing district each year and each time we face renewal. These metrics are tracked annually on the California dashboard for all public schools. Our counseling team uses a variety of scores to determine high school course placement. Teachers can also use results to spot and correct instructional plans that aren't working or identify skills or knowledge they need to focus on more. Teachers might also use the results of assessments to recommend curriculum to ensure your scholars progressing academically. At Compass, we talk about personalized education, balancing the development of the whole child and helping scholars reach their full potential. This approach comes from knowing your scholar through assessment data as one piece of their plan to succeed. For example, the main data point we use to invite scholars to intervention support is the STAR test, given on an interim basis 3 times a year. Any scholar identified with a benchmark of intervention or urgent intervention on the STAR assessment receives an invitation to attend intervention and tutoring. This additional instructional support can make a difference for many scholars, allowing them to gain additional support and confidence while developing an understanding of grade level standards. This is why it's hugely important that scholars take this test seriously with fidelity. We use this data as our starting point when it comes to providing academic support. So if a test score is not accurate, I would recommend testing again. And assessments aren't the only measure of scholar achievement. Be assured that Compass teachers and staff are using other metrics, such as projects, performance tasks like research papers and presentations, as well as their performance in courses to determine scholar achievement and address skill gaps. We understand that successful scholars may not assess well for a variety of reasons. We look at all available data to respond to our scholars' needs. We may also use assessment data to provide outcomes to the state or to our authorizing district. Assessment data is our report card rather than the scholar's report card. And this data helps guide our school and our teachers to ensure we're not only meeting requirements, but also meeting the individual needs of each scholar. So what is assessment results not used for? Assessment results are not used in any high-stake decisions, such as determining if a scholar advances to the next grade, if a scholar graduates, or if a scholar passes or fails a course. Assessment results are separate from course grades and grade level advancement at the end of each year. And if we share assessment data with educational partners, we're sharing aggregated data, meaning we don't share private, individual, or identifying information. Aggregated data is typically shared by grade level groups, program, and by charter. Okay, so now that we have vocabulary and the why behind assessments, let's get into those specifics. We begin the school year with STAR assessments, which will be administered 3 times a year in September, December, and May in live proctored sessions. STAR is a computer-based adaptive assessment with assessments in early literacy, reading, and math. Scholars in grades K-2 will take early literacy to screen for foundational skills. We also have curriculum-based measures, or CBMs, which are short 1-minute assessments designed to provide useful information for our teachers and tutors for scholars in K-2 who are struggling with foundational skills. Scholars in grades 1 to 12 take reading and math. We have our 1st and 2nd grade scholars start with early literacy, and if they reach the threshold score, they move on to reading and math. Freckle is an additional Renaissance product. It's a curriculum that uses STAR assessment scores to set a beginning level for reading and math practice activities. Scholars may use Freckle as an optional supplemental instructional aid. Scholars using Freckle are encouraged to schedule 30 to 60 minutes per week to work on their instructional paths in Freckle. Scholars at risk or below grade level are encouraged to attend live tutoring sessions in addition to their asynchronous work in Freckle. And we also have social studies and science available in our Freckle subscription to offer additional resources for our scholars. LaLilo is another Renaissance product that is used exclusively by K-2 scholars who are most at risk, as identified by early literacy and CBM results. In order to close skill gaps and strengthen scholars' foundational skills, LaLilo will be the recommended supplemental curriculum for intervention for our younger scholars. Live instruction is also provided for scholars in grades K-2 for reading intervention. We want to offer foundational skill support for our youngest scholars so they can be successful readers by grade 3. Supervising teachers will use STAR results along with Freckle and the LELO progress during parent-teacher conferences and connection meetings to collaborate with parents and plan the best support for their scholars. So our next assessment in the timeline is LPAC. These language fluency assessments are administered by our own Compass teachers and staff to our emergent multilingual scholars, also known as scholars learning English in grades K to 12. The LPAC is aligned with the 2012 California English Language Development Standards. Scholars are assessed in 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The initial LPAC is used to determine if a scholar is an English learner or is fluent and proficient in English. The assessment is given once to incoming scholars who have never been enrolled in a California public school. And eligibility is based on the home language survey, which declares a primary or home language as a language other than English. This initial LPAC is given throughout the school year as new scholars enroll. The initial LPAC is administered remotely, and scholars are scheduled to join a virtual meeting to take their assessment. The LPAC score reports are typically emailed within a week of administration, along with the scholar's new designation based on their results. And the summative LPAC is given to scholars who have been classified as English learners based on their initial LPAC results administered at Compass or at their previous school. The summative LPAC measures how well multilingual scholars are progressing with English language development annually, and to measure progress toward English proficiency to help determine if a scholar is ready to be reclassified as fluent and English proficient. The summative LPAC is administered from February 1st to May 31st each school year. Okay, next up, the PFT, the physical fitness test, consists of multiple activities. The main goal is to help scholars establish lifelong habits of regular physical activity. The PFT has 6 activities that demonstrate a level of fitness that offer a degree of defense against diseases that come from inactivity. This assessment window is also February 1st to May 31st. We will host park days to administer the PFT in person at neighborhood parks across the state, as there is not an approved remote administration available for this assessment. Our PFT dates this school year are Thursday, February 19th, Tuesday, April 28th, and Friday, May 15th. Registration for PFT park days will be shared in the MMU in January. Select park locations may also have a community meetup scheduled after the PFT. Additional information will be provided in the MMU. Okay, next is the CASP. The CASP, which includes the CAST or the science tests, are given at the same time in the spring. These assessments are computer-based and require a laptop or desktop computer or an iPad with an external keyboard, and require that the secure browser is downloaded to the device ahead of time. Personal Chromebooks are not compatible with the secure browser, but school-managed Chromebooks are. We offer loaner computers for testing if necessary. If you already know you're going to need a loaner computer for testing, please let your supervising teacher know. We use Compass teaching staff as assessment proctors, and this school year, our CASP assessment window begins March 16th, 2026. While the CAW, the alternate assessments for ELA and math, align with the CASP schedule, the CAW science test can begin as early as September. All sections of the CAW must be administered in person, and this is typically scheduled and administered by the educational specialists from our special education department. Score reports for CASP and summative LPAC are typically available 8 to 12 weeks after our testing ends at the end of spring and can be accessed in the parent or scholar portal in School Pathways. If your scholar took the CASP or LPAC last year, even if they did so at another California public school, you should be able to find those score reports in the parent portal once they're actively enrolled here at Compass. And then we have 2 other screeners, MySabers and Amira. MySabers is another Renaissance product in our STAR suite. It's a brief and contextually relevant self-rating of risk for social, emotional, and behavioral needs. The screener consists of 20 items that take approximately 5 to 10 minutes to complete. This screener will be administered in October for grades 2 to 12, and our academic support and counseling teams will use the data to check in with and support scholars who have a risk factor. And then Amira is new for us this year in compliance with Education Code 53008, and in accordance with our commitment to supporting all scholars. Scholars in grades K to 2 will be screened annually. Our window will begin February 2nd and end February 27th. Amira predicts at-risk scholars with accuracy through neuroscience-based oral tasks designed to detect early signs of dyslexia. Our scholar support team will follow up with scholars who need additional support with skills and learning. And additional information will be shared for these screeners as we approach each of these screening windows. So keep an eye out for those in the MMU. So who takes what? There's so many assessments, it can be confusing to track if your scholar needs to take an assessment. So using this table, you can determine which assessments your scholar needs at Compass. Note that the screeners are not included in this table. So CAS, remember that's ELA and math, is taken by scholars in grades 3 through 8 and 11. CAST, science, is taken by scholars in grades 5, 8, and once in high school. It's recommended that the high school scholars take CAST the year they are finishing their second and final science course. This would typically be grade 10, but it may be grade 11 or 12. STAR Early Literacy is taken by scholars in grades K to 2, and scholars in grades 3 to 12 may access early literacy if necessary based on their level of need or their IEP. STAR assessments, reading and math, are taken by scholars in grades 1 through 12. For grades 1 and 2, remember STAR reading and math may be recommended based on the scholar's at or above grade level score on their early literacy assessment. LPACs given to scholars in grades K to 12 as appropriate for scholars identified through their home language survey or scholars previously identified as emergent multilingual scholars. Recent legislation removed TK from the initial LPAC, and those scholars will not be assessed until kindergarten. And then PFT is taken by scholars in grades 5, 7, and 9. With each of the assessments, we post reminders in the MMU, and your ST will be communicating with you about these assessments. No, I also wanted to note, TK is not included in the grade level that take these assessments because they're learning foundational skills. Any assessment that's done is done by their teachers in a one-on-one setting, and it's done during teaching or through their work samples and through connection meetings. Okay, so here's another look at our assessment map or our timeline. We've mapped this out with the goal of keeping our assessments from overlapping to prevent assessment stacking toward the end of the year and hopefully to avoid assessment fatigue. So our fall STAR window starts the first day of school and continues until September 19th. Then My Sabers begins October 6th. Our winter STAR window begins December 1st and ends December 19th when we go to winter break. The state LPAC window begins February 1st to May 31st each school year, but our Compass LPAC window will begin March 2nd and continue until May 29th, which is the final Friday in May. And then our new reading difficulty screener in place February 2nd to 27th for our scholars in grades K to 2. Online scholars will begin that screener February 2nd as it's added as an assignment in their Accelerate Ed curriculum. CAS begins March 16th until April 3rd when we go on spring break. And our assessment TOSAs will be hosting the CAS prep sessions again this school year, and those begin February 6th to March 6th at noon on Fridays, and we'll use Zoom registration and Parent Square and the MMU to send that information out. And then we'll do some CAS makeups that occur after spring break for 3 weeks. Our 3 PFT dates are scheduled this year. And then to wrap up the year, we have our spring STAR window, and that begins May 18th until June 5th. So here's some estimated times for each of the assessments given at Compass, and this reflects actual assessment time and doesn't include time for instructions or logging into the test delivery system. So when we share estimated assessment times, there's no implication that scholars need to finish in a certain amount of time for state assessments because they're untimed. The times listed are average estimates, and scholars may finish in less time or take more time than listed. STAR does have time limits for each question, which are essential to the norming of the assessments for early literacy, reading, and math. Time limits can be extended based on the scholar's IEP, 504, or documented need. Unlimited time in STAR is an accommodation that must be clearly stated in the IEP. The initial LPAC assessment is administered one-on-one with a trained administrator and takes about 60 minutes. Scholars may take as much time as needed to complete the assessment and answer each question. The summative LPAC is an annual assessment that can take up to 2 hours, but again, it's untimed and scholars may take the time necessary to complete their assessment. And then the LPAC, I said, contained 4 domains. Those can be administered separately and on different days as needed for the scholar or the administrator's schedule. So to prepare for the CASP, CAW, and LPAC, practice and training tests are available on the CASP and LPAC website. These practice tests allow scholars to become familiar with the testing interface and help to expose scholars to the types of questions they should expect during the assessment. Parents can work with the scholars using the practice and training tests. There are no score reports for the practice and training tests. The purpose of these is to expose the scholars to the types of questions they may encounter in the assessment and to practice using the embedded accommodations and supports. Our ELD tutors also use the practice and training tests in their sessions in a formative assessment process to discuss the types of questions, how to approach it, and to teach test-taking strategies. Our assessment TOSAs host the CASP prep sessions via Zoom in the weeks leading up to CASP testing to share strategies and information with scholars. Scholars can register to attend those CASP prep sessions, and we share the recordings in the MMU each week. The difference between a practice test, a performance task, and a training test is this. The practice test includes examples of all the types of questions that may appear in the actual assessment at each grade or grade span and mirrors a full-length operational test. A performance task is a multi-question task requiring scholars to link skills and knowledge across standards. And a training test is shorter compared to the practice test and includes some sample questions for each domain. Scholars can practice using the various universal and accessibility tools that are available within the testing system. Additional resources for parents and scholars can be found at each Starting Smarter website. Okay, so parents who joined us today who have scholars enrolled with us last year may be wondering, what about those score reports? Score reports from last spring's CASP and LPAC assessments are available in the Parent Scholar portal in School Pathways for scholars who are pre-enrolled and or actively enrolled at Compass. So I think they're sharing a link in there, and we shared it earlier, the instructions for accessing the portal. If your scholar attended a different California public school last year, you should be able to view their score reports in the portal the first or second week of school once their enrollment records are complete. The Starting Smarter websites have additional information and resources for you about the score reports and what those scores mean. The score reports have been redesigned this year, so please visit the sites to learn about the score reports and the information they provide. Okay, and then we'll take a moment to look at our WOW schedule together. The first week was all about building excitement and connection. We had a welcome back events, orientations, and special open houses hosted by our departments and programs. Those were wonderful opportunities for our families to meet staff, ask questions, and feel truly welcome back into our Compass community. As we move into week 2, the focus continues on giving our families the tools they need for a strong start. In addition to our presentations today, our EL department has prepared a fantastic session designed to share helpful information and resources for our EL families. The goal of all the WOW sessions is to make sure every scholar feels supported and ready to shine as we move into the new school year. In the event that you missed any of our WOW sessions, the link in the chat has our Weeks of Welcome library to access any session recordings and slide decks from our WOW offerings. So I know we just covered an enormous amount of information, and I appreciate that each of you took time out of your busy week to learn more about assessments at Compass. This is my contact information on the slide if you have any questions. Thank you again for joining me.